Chapter 3. Life lies on both sides of death, but death contains two doors, one leading to the fragrance of eternal joy, the other to the stench of eternal loneliness. Awakened Incident Manual, AIM, Volume 2, page 4. September 5th, 4:12 p.m., Paris. Renaud. It's a name that had troubled Lazarus, or L as he liked to be called, ever since the dusting of It's a name that had troubled Lazarus, or L as he liked to be called, ever since the dusting of Abdul Baith in Cairo almost 5 months ago. A name that first appeared on a UD message to a terrorist leader. Renaud. Who was he? Where was he? What was he? Most importantly, was he the UD, the prophesied leader of the undead, and as a result, untouchable? L shook his head. I don't like that. Most importantly, was he the UD, the prophesied leader of the undead, and as a result, untouchable? L. The prophesied leader of the undead, and as a result, untouchable? L shook his head. If so, he may very well be the source of the darkness I've seen coming. Renaud. The name sat in his mind as if it had been branded into his brain. One thing was certain. He was more than just a name on the bottom of an encrypted telegram. It was a name that had sent L to Paris on his first UD hunt since Berlin in 1938. It hadn't been profitable. Blind UD hunts rarely were, but he had to come, had to at least try something. To have a UD rise to such a pinnacle of power undetected was, it was a failure of his leadership within. The society of it was a failure of his leadership within the Society of Awakened and Restored. It was a failure of his leadership within the Society of the Awakened and Restored, the organization that L had led for centuries. No. So every once in a while, you'll be reading this stuff and the punctuation will mess you up. So a really good piece of advice I got from someone it may have been Luke Daniels actually online on a video. Ignore the punctuation, because right now I've got a comma after the word within that's throwing me. So, all right. Find my place. It was a failure of his leadership within the Society of the Awakened and Restored, the organization that L had led for centuries. The message that had introduced the name Renaud had originated in Paris. So L roamed the streets looking for a UD, any UD. Chava Shane, the UD prophet, second only to the UD, was here, though no awakened had ever seen her. It made sense that if this Renaud was the UD leader, the leader that was prophesied to appear at the end of times, as L suspected, he would be where she was. Now he found himself strolling along the Seine near the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The river's peaceful flow allowed his mind to drift with the water, the unusually warm September sun reflecting off the rippling current. He took a deep breath as he passed vacationers taking pictures and Paris natives enjoying the day. The air had the distant smell of baking baguettes and croissants, as well as the faint odor of burnt paper that always reminded L of Paris. As he watched the boats float by, a chill spidered up his spine as the hairs on the back of his neck bristled. He turned and scanned the area. Across the street and through the traffic, he caught a glimpse of a short man with a cane staring at him. The man wore an expensive gray silk suit with a brilliant white shirt and light blue tie, clearly a high-level government official or a successful businessman. Nothing about the man seemed out of place. That was until the man flashed a sly smile, then turned and strolled away from the ministry building. Something about the man was unsettling, but at the same time familiar, especially that smile. He had seen it before, but where? Elle watched the man until he faded into the crowd. He shook his head as a tenseness coiled in his stomach. Could he be? Still, the man was clearly a natural, not a UD. September 5th, 4:17 p.m., Paris. Lazarus is in Paris. Renaud glanced back as he walked away. Lazarus was staring at him with a puzzled look. Lazarus must be looking for him. It's begun. For now, let him stew on what he saw, or thought he saw in Paris. The encounter had made his day. The last time Renaud had seen him was... He guessed it was in France a long time ago, in that beautiful gas cloud. I miss that war, but another, even larger one will break out soon. The look of confusion on Lazarus's face validated all of his planning. Lazarus never expected that I would return as a natural. Renaud picked up the pace, his cane clicking on the sidewalk in a rhythmic, playful motion. The thought of all the death that was coming energized him. Half an hour later, he walked into Chavat's office. I have to give you credit. He's here, exactly as you predicted. She looked up from the desk. A cocky smirk formed on her face. I told you I would get stronger. Did he see you? Did he recognize you? He saw me for a moment. I must admit he did appear puzzled. I could tell it was driving him crazy, but no, he didn't recognize me. As I suspected, that short-sighted awakened never imagined that I would arrive as a natural. As I suspected, such short-sighted awakened never imagined that I would arrive as a natural. His eyes glowed as he looked up at the bright blue sky shining through Chavat's skylight. Did you get that god? He shook his fist in the air. Your errand boy dropped the ball. I can manipulate him as easily as any natural. You should be careful. He may presume your identity. Renaud shrugged. It won't be long before it's obvious to him, which brings me to the real reason I stopped by. How are things going in North Korea? Good news and bad news, I'm afraid. The bonne nouvelle is that Sok Kang-ju has reported that the virus